Welcome to Monday Morning Methane. Today, I am excited to be joined by Monica Prabhu, who is the founder of the Methane Mitigation Industries Council, or MMIC. Monica, welcome to Monday Morning Methane.
Thank you, Tom. Very glad to be here.
So, can we start? Maybe you can explain a little bit what MMIC is and why you founded it.
Yes, so the MMIC is a member-based nonprofit that was formed by member companies to support the entire methane mitigation industry in making faster, deeper cuts in methane emissions worldwide. So in that you can hear all methane emission sources, all mitigation approaches, all geographies are under the MMIC. And the core members of this group are the methane mitigation technology providers and the project developers that are implementing those technologies. There are also members in the ecosystem, which is going to be really crucial to making this work happen. Those are the associated technology and service providers like monitoring, measurement, reporting, and verification, as well as capital providers and finance, and industry advisors and service providers, emissions credit intermediaries and buyers. Last but certainly not least, corporations that are trying to mitigate their methane emissions or have set some kind of target around methane emissions reduction, even if it doesn't come from their own operations. So that's what the MMIC is. It's this big tent, and the year one objectives, because this is the first year, is to improve awareness of the industry with buyers and finance and to connect the ecosystem. Basic trade association 101, baby.
So, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you how long you guys have been around, but if you answered the question, it's pretty recent that you founded.
Yes. Yes. So
You're covering all things. I'm an oil and gas guy, but this is like every source of methane is within
fair
scope,
game.
is fair game.
Even natural sources of methane emissions are in
Really?
our purview. Yeah. So um, m our focus is on the commercially available solutions and scaling those up, making sure that those are doing the work that they are meant to do in cutting methane emissions. However, MMIC is also keeping an eye on the pipeline of innovations that are coming up that are needed for those hard to abate methane emissions, because that's part of the picture, including these really low concentration methane emissions um, that eventually are going to get up to the atmosphere and potentially need to be removed from the atmosphere. So, yeah, all of the above. And the organizing principle, though, is that all of these commercial interests are aligned with faster, deeper cuts in methane emissions.
So when
Yeah.
you I often like wave my hands around and say there's like 100 or more, maybe even 200 different methane technologies just in the measurement space in oil and
Mm.
gas.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, have you done the math? Like, do you have a sense of how many methane startups there are trying to make an impact on methane emissions globally for all industries?
Have not counted yet. However, I will say um, the EDF did a report on the methane mitigation industry, and it was only oil and gas service providers, and there were hundreds. And there were, this was earlier this year, I believe, in 2025. Um, and it was giving an idea that this industry is growing. However, of course, we know that and for me, I actually was at an operating company developing a technology for methane emissions where we were first looking at coal mine ventilation air methane and then looking at landfill gas methane and settled on oil and gas as the hard to abate source that we were going to work on first. So I'm very aware as the leader of this new industry, which, by the way, I was nominated, did not decide to do this.
Voluntold?
What's that?
Voluntold?
I was voluntold. Yes, I was voluntold by colleagues who said, yeah, we're not going fast enough and there's too many misunderstandings and misconceptions. Methane mitigation is not the same thing as decarbonization, but people don't seem to understand. Um, so in terms of number of technology providers out there, if MMIC was just the tech providers, yeah, there would be there would definitely be multiple hundreds. And we're not just talking about sensing, monitoring, and so that we can look for leaks. We're also talking about um, manure management technologies. We're talking about biodigesters. We're talking about microbes that handle methane emissions. We're talking about catalysts. There's so many technologies, and some of them have applications across sectors.
So, I mean, I want to come back to one of the things you said, which is part of your mandate exists because you believe we're not moving fast enough. And I think this is something we may have had healthy debates about in the past. But I often
Yeah.
say, it's obviously there's a ton of work to do, but it's great how much we're accomplishing in such a short time period. Why do you believe we're not moving faster on methane emissions reductions?
Yes, the $1 billion question. And if I could answer it and satisfy everybody who asked, I would be a wealthy person. Um, I would say number one, this is methane mitigation is not mandated yet everywhere. There are some regulations out there, but in the big picture, it's not required. So there has to be some kind of business motivation, and whether that's an economic business motivation or some other value proposition. Um, in order to get that voluntary mass moving, there needs to be some kind of a motivation, or the regulation can provide other kinds of disincentives. Um, Yet, I think there's also a lack of awareness and appreciation for what those business values um, that methane mitigation provides are. In oil and gas, depending on who you are, it's very straightforward. Depending on who you are, if you are a high profile multinational, you have made commitments, you have shareholders watching to see how you're doing, you want to keep your product in the pipe, etc. If you are a smallholder running a family operation, you have very different incentives. There are solutions out there that could could move the motivation for different types of businesses, but those businesses are not yet aware of the value proposition. So if you own a marginal well, for instance, you may be able to do the math and find out that it makes more sense for you to decommission and have credits for that than to keep it running. Um, but we're not connecting the dots quite yet. So we're not quite aligned with what's available and what the value proposition really is. And it might
Mm-hmm.
not be methane mitigation, it might be
Mm-hmm.
something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the climate impact also, I think, is what is underestimated. It's not understood. That how we can have immediate reductions in the rate of global warming if we stopped putting so much methane into the atmosphere. They'll still think that's not fully understood.
Yeah, your comments on clearly articulating the value proposition resonate with me. And I would say that even in the oil and gas industry, I think conceptually you can wave your hands and say, oh, yeah, it's, this is the product that we're producing and selling, and that, there's a clear impact to our business, but it's quite hard to do the math and clearly show that business case a lot of the
It really
time.
depends on who
Yeah.
you are. It really, in some cases, any specific producer needs a specific solution for their particular geography, their assets, and what makes sense for their business, where they are in their business journey, whether they're just starting up or whether they're decades in. Yeah, so being able to make all those needles available
Hmm.
is part of the work of the MMIC.
So MMIC is you're bringing all these mostly methane technology companies, vendors, solution providers together under an umbrella internationally across segments, across industries for the good of methane to move faster. It seems obvious. Why has no one done this so far? I mean, I feel like this should have happened like 10 years ago. Do you have a sense of why that is?
So actually, okay, I asked you to ask me this question, and I just
That
realized,
you don't know?
no, 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 something else. This happened at New York Climate Week. I said those words. This should have happened 10 years ago, and it turns out And I'll answer the question, why hasn't it happened yet? But the person next to me at an event about methane mitigation and how can we turn pledges into action, et cetera, came up to me afterwards and he said, I was just like burning up when you said that because I actually tried to do this 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't believe it. And you can't make this stuff up. This person sitting next to me was at a major financial institution, had previously been at a major climate NGO, and had actually tried to get this going in the past. And actually, it sort of is still out there, but it's not the same as what MMIC is doing. So we had a great conversation, but really, it's not a glamorous job. Like basic table stakes organizing is just like it's the sort of fundamental foundational work that needs to be done. But I find almost everything exciting. I'm just like one of those people that's a big nerd and I'm curious. I want to learn everything that's going on. I want to be in the middle of it. Um, but I think it's not something that has an obvious business model and doesn't, because a lot of these companies who are trying to take action are struggling because we don't have mandates. The business values are not clear. So it's not glamorous, it's not high paying, but it's entirely necessary. I think there's also a lot of sense that there are organizations in methane, and it's like, isn't somebody doing this? That's what I
Yeah.
got a lot of those questions. Wait, is the Global Methane Hub doing this? What isn't Highwood doing this?
Yeah. There's an initiative for this. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there
Yeah.
an initiative for this? But when you look around at the whole landscape, there is no organization that's 100% focused just on the commercial solutions providers for methane mitigation. Um, and nobody has been talking about the methane mitigation industry. I mean, when I first said it, I put air quotes around it. But in fact, it's been emerging for more than a decade. Um, yeah,
Yeah. And we need each other. We got a rising tide, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and frankly, that's why, we decided to set up this call today is I saw you at Climate Week in New York. You took that event as an opportunity to organize a series of events, all afternoon and into the evening, where you brought not only vendors, solution providers together, but all sorts of different stakeholders across the ecosystem. So, what was your goal? Why did you host those events at Climate Week?
Well, going back to the two major objectives for MMIC, improving awareness for the industry with buyers and finance. So inviting those folks to the room. The first session was a showcase of mitigation solutions. 10 different companies tackling methane emissions in 10 different ways across the whole globe, from India to Africa and um, Canada and the US. And it was just the tip of the iceberg. And then the second session was to talk about demand signals and business value. And that was a discussion where there was the buyer perspective was present and the attendees were invited to participate, not just ask questions, but kind of go back and forth because we had a lot of expertise. So that was the connecting the ecosystem part. Number one, improve awareness. Number two, connect the ecosystem. And then we had social activities or social events where people could just meet each other, discuss what they had heard, make connections, have time to recognize each other, even if they were in very different types of businesses, that we had a common goal.
Hmm. I met a lot of people working and this is a question you didn't plant, so good luck.
Yeah.
I met a lot of people working in kind of the voluntary carbon market space, which I found interesting because we don't see as much of that, especially on the measurement side in oil and gas. We're starting to see a little bit with kind of plugging abandoned wells, but that seems to be a big kind of driver and opportunity, at least from my perspective, in terms of the companies that you have been collaborating with. Is
Yeah,
that true?
that's absolutely right. Um, MMIC kind of took inspiration actually from another organization that was organizing to take advantage of the voluntary carbon markets, and uh, yet we're also struggling with that overshadowing of the word carbon and the focus on carbon dioxide. Um, so the voluntary carbon market actually offers carbon dioxide equivalent credits. So methane, you can buy into methane emissions abatement projects but they're not branded that way, really. They're branded as CO2e, carbon dioxide equivalent. And it's a problem for those who are getting familiar with the important near-term impacts of methane on climate and also all these other business value propositions. Um, but we're going to try to make it work because that work is being done. There are project developers who are focusing completely on methane emissions in places like food recovery, so keeping food out of landfills,
That was cool.
sanitation projects in
Hmm.
Nairobi,
I
Kenya.
saw that one too.
I mean, this is awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And um, there are actually individual consumers who are interested and companies who are interested in going beyond their carbon footprint to really do something with immediate impact. Methane emissions is that. Um, and so they're looking for, okay, how do we figure out who's doing this work and how can we get a buy into that?
Yeah, that's super cool. Were there any like big moments at Climate Week during your event or otherwise where, well, maybe choose one because we try to keep these things short, but where you were just like, oh, or you had like a crazy aha moment?
I mean, I think it's this like dawning awareness that we've got a lot of work to do. Like there's so much enthusiasm and eagerness and like people want to do the right thing and they've some people have been working at this for so many years, but yet we still have a lot of work to do to really start to get on the trajectory that the IPCC wants us to. Methane emissions reduction, we're way behind in what those international goals are. So I'm like, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's go. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, last question, and we'll call it a day. I'm curious to see where MMIC goes. I'm excited about the vision that you have for the organization. Sounds like you're getting a lot of really good traction, even just within kind of the few short months since you've started.
Mhm.
If we're talking again 12 months from now, uh, what's your hopes and dreams for where the initiative is has landed by then?
Well, the idea is that over the next few years, we'll have a thriving methane mitigation industry. In the first year, that means people need to know that there's a specific place to go to find methane mitigation solutions and companies. So a robust database that's searchable. I'd like to have that out there in the world and functioning and people taking advantage of it. And a report on the state of the industry. Like, where are the gaps? Where do we have robust, mature solutions? Um, and I hope there'll be like a nice catalog of showcase webinars and events where you can really get into a little bit more detail. What are these solutions? And that the member community will be buzzing with activity.
I was going to say, and we have 500 members.
Exactly. I mean, to have a representative member body, we're going to need multiple hundreds of companies that really fill out the picture because it's quite an industry.
Yeah, it's crazy out there, and it has been for a while, and things aren't changing. So lots
Ah,
of tech, lots of innovation,
yeah.
lots of opportunity. Monica, thanks so much for joining us on Monday Morning Methane. I wish you all the best with
Thank you.
MMIC, and I'm excited to catch up in a few months and hear how it's going.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, take care.